were the things that you needed to make peace with in your life? Hi, my name is Ayam McCullum, and in this podcast, Tales of the Stardust, I will be telling you stories from antiquity and world mythology, but in a different light and different perspective, with lessons that you can incorporate in your everyday life, because these stories have been told from generations to generations. So come and join me as we dive deep down in today's story. In this episode today, this is about war, but can also be incorporated with life. One example of a life lesson that I learned growing up was Murphy's Law. Whatever can happen will happen. In the last 2 episodes of this podcast, we mainly focused on 2 Greek mythology goddesses that were not exactly seen as heroic. However, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about 2 very prominent gods in Greek mythology. I am, of course, talking about Aries and the goddess Athena. Now, both these gods have very similar actions that portray, and they're always rivals throughout mythology. There is probably 1 or 2 stories where they actually get along, but otherwise they're both head and head together, which makes them the most relatable sibling pair that we can all relate to. However, I'm going to be talking about how Athena relates to Aries, because there is a certain way in all the myths that she's portrayed with him that she treats him, because he represents something that we kind of take for granted, but it always drives us insane or crazy, and I'll get to that in just a minute. So, about this god and goddess, Athena is the goddess of war, but she's the goddess of war in strategy. She makes strategy and tactics and plans, and basically tries to make everything go as perfectly as possible. Now, if you've been on this earth long enough, you know that nothing goes according to plan. And that is where Aries comes in, because Aries is also the god of war. But he is the part of war that comes regardless of plans and strategy. He is the pain, the suffering, and the bloodlust of war. Things that want to be avoided, but cannot be avoided. Sometimes we try to become Athena, or we try to be like Athena, where we always plan, we always strategize, we always make sure that everything's going to go according to plan. However, we can sometimes turn into an Aries where all the plan just goes out the window and we just charge out into the war. As I said before, Aries is unavoidable. You can't go without war, without death, pain, suffering. But that's where Athena comes in, because she knows that he is unavoidable. In this way, and knowing ourselves as people, we tend to think that Athena would just try to lock him up, try to distract him, try to do anything to get her brother to end up in war and destroy all her long planning, strategizing. But this is the learning curve of Athena. Because yet we do strategize. There's one thing that we do know, is that Aries is unavoidable. He's going to come no matter what. So, what does Athena do? Well, she prepares for him, because she knows her enemy. Since Athena prepares, even though he is kind of unpredictable and unavoidable, she uses every possible aspect to try to beat him at whatever it is. Whether it's war or another dispute. So how does that relate to us? Well, Athena and Aries are just two variables in an equation that we could put into. Because no matter what we do, we act like Athena in the situation, where we plan, we strategize, we imagine, we visualize what we're going to do. But then we forget that there's also an Aries involved, and which is the unpredictable and the unavoidable can always happen, and it will happen. And sometimes that Aries aspect of something that we want to do usually blinds our view of us actually doing the whole fighting part and the war part. Because if Athena kept strategizing for war and visualizing what she wanted to do, but knew that Aries was going to come no matter what, and she didn't go to war, well then there is no war to fight, there is no goal to conquer. So we can take being prepared for it and just not going with the flow per se, but going with the mentality that whatever's going to come my way, I can conquer it. Because life is unpredictable. Life is kind of the Aries in war. It's unavoidable and it's unpredictable. But we can use as much as we can to visualize, strategize, and prepare for what is out there, even though we don't know exactly what our paths, what our challenges and trials are. But we can be prepared for them as best we can. But we also need to have that knowledge that we are strong enough to face those challenges, whatever they may be. So back to that Murphy's Law that I discussed in the beginning of the episode. Whatever can happen will happen. But we can prepare for it. And that we are ready for it. We can strategize and visualize. But we have the strength to conquer whatever we may see or what we'll not see in our way. Thank you so much for listening to Tales of the Stardust today. And if you'd like to see more content like this, make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at @IM_McCullum and let the stars be your guide.